Hello and welcome into Zak's Picks. I'm Zak McCullar. We're here for the first video of the season. I had picks made last week, but I was unable to make a video. I went 12-3 last week, missed a couple of games. I missed the Florida State LSU game, which if you did not see it, I hope you'll find some highlights because that was one of the best football games that I've seen in a long time. Getting right down to business here, our first three games are all FCS teams traveling into the South to face SEC opponents. None of those three are going to be close, so I'm going to use this mostly to recap last week for those teams, as well as to make brief picks. We have Samford traveling to Athens to face the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia looked extremely impressive last week. They beat Oregon. Very ugly game. Bo Nix did not play well for Oregon, which I thought he would. I had Oregon winning that game. Needless to say, they did not, and it was emphatic fashion for the Bulldogs. They have not missed a beat. They look improved from last year. And to say that you're improved from your first national championship in 40 years, that is something very major. I think Georgia's just going to wipe the grass with Samford. I hate it. I really like the Samford Bulldogs. I just think Georgia's going to be way too much for them. My next game, I have Central Arkansas. They're traveling to Oxford, Mississippi to take on the Rebels of Ole Miss. Ole Miss, they struggled offensively last week. They won 28-10 against Troy, who is a lesser opponent. But Ole Miss, that's just not a Lane Kiffin-esque offensive performance. I mean, you only scored 28 to a bad team. It just shows that maybe there's something missing. With Jackson Dart instead of Matt Corral's gone off to the NFL. Jackson Dart is a transfer from USC. There's just a major drop-off from quarterback there. Is Central Arkansas going to win? No, there's no chance of that. But that is a concern for Ole Miss in the future. I have the Rebels winning big. Next game, we have Southern traveling to Baton Rouge to take on the LSU Tigers. LSU, that was one of the most heartbreaking, if not the most heartbreaking ways to lose last week. A blocked extra point with no time left on the clock to fall to Florida State 24-23. Are they going to win? Of course. They're going to beat Southern. There's no way they're going to lose. But LSU, Brian Kelly, this is going to be his first win of his career the first win at LSU. He is one of the all-time winningest head coaches. He's the all-time winningest head coach. Well, let me start that over. He is the winningest head coach to still be coaching college football. He's ahead of Nick Saban in that respect, which, I mean, to be ahead of the GOAT is very hard to do. So Brian Kelly, he just does not have the most talented team that he's had at Notre Dame while he's at LSU. It's just that, you know, your quarterback is Jaden Daniels. He's a transfer from the West Coast. He was at Arizona State. He's now down in Louisiana. I just don't think LSU's going to be this wonderful team this year that's going to have just roses and lily pads and unicorns. It's just not going to be that way. If you thought it was, I feel bad for you because LSU is not going to win a national championship in the next 2 or 3 years. There's no way. It's been less than 1,000 days since they won that national championship in 2019. To think that it has not been a long time since 15-0, one of the greatest teams you've ever seen, then we're here. It's just almost unimaginable, but yet here we are. So I have LSU beating Southern. I think LSU might struggle in the first quarter, but end up running away with it at the end. Next game, we have the Auburn Tigers hosting San Jose State. Auburn is a 23.5-point favorite, and I like that spread. I think that's about where it's going to be. Auburn, they have a quarterback battle, which none of us saw coming. I think TJ Finley is going to beat out Robbie Ashford for the starting job, at least for this week. I've got Auburn by 24. I do think they're going to cover by just a half a point. Next game, we have Appalachian State. They are traveling to Texas A&M. They're going to be facing the Aggies. The Aggies open up as a 17.5-point favorite. That's close for an SEC team who is one of the top 10 teams in the country against a Sun Belt team. But if you saw how App State played against North Carolina last week, North Carolina's defensive coordinator is Gene Chizik. The former Auburn head coach had a lot of success there. They scored 61 points. And no matter who you're playing, if you allow 61 points, that's terrible. And you won the game. I mean, North Carolina won by 2, 63-61, and two-point conversion fell incomplete in the last few seconds of the game to secure that for the Tar Heels. But App State is still a very good team. They're dangerous. Could they knock off Texas A&M? I guess they could. Don't think so. I have A&M by 2 touchdowns. They're not going to cover, though. I do not see them covering this one. I think it's going to be a lot closer than the experts think. Next is a rare road trip for an SEC team to the West Coast, as we have Mississippi State traveling to Arizona. They're going to face the Wildcats. Arizona has struggled recently. They have had a very good quarterback, every year for the past few years. Now they don't. They do not have good players at all. Arizona is one of the, if not the worst team in the Pac-12. I think Mississippi State is going to. They smell blood in the water. They're going to come out, and they're going to dominate. I have Mississippi State by 30 points. They're a 10.5-point favorite. They'll obliterate that spread. Next game is a very interesting game, and when talking about the Vanderbilt Commodores, saying that they have an interesting game against anybody not in the FCS is a surprise. They have Wake Forest, who has been ranked. Sam Hartman is their star quarterback. He is out indefinitely with a non-football related injury. Vanderbilt, they have home field advantage. They are 10-point underdogs, though, which is very surprising. I don't think Wake Forest has much offense. Their defense is all right. Vanderbilt's offense, however, with Wright at quarterback, Mike Wright is the quarterback, he is outstanding. He is a running quarterback. He looks like a running back that can throw the ball. He is not a quarterback that can run. He's a running back that can throw. And that is going to be a major advantage because even the best defenses of all time struggle against running quarterbacks. You see Nick Saban and his defenses are always struggling against the running quarterback. So I think Vanderbilt's going to pull the upset here. I think they're going to win by a touchdown. And when you're a 10-point underdog, that is always very good. Next we have Missouri traveling to the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas, to face the Kansas State Wildcats. Kansas State is a 7.5-point favorite. Elijah Drinkowitz, he's the Missouri head coach. He was supposed to be the kind of guy that was going to get them back to being ranked every year, to be a contender for the SEC East like they were about 10 years ago when they first joined the conference, where they won back-to-back SEC East championships in 2013 and 2014. Missouri's just not at that level, and I don't think they're going to be at that level for a long time unless they can find some significant talent. They had Kelly Bryant from Clemson transfer there, and they did nothing with him. That shows that Missouri's got a long way to go before they're a contender. I have Kansas State winning by 2 touchdowns with a home field advantage, and because Missouri is not that great. 7.5-point favorites, I think they're going to cover. Next, we have an interesting game. It's a rematch from last year. We have Pittsburgh hosting the Tennessee Volunteers. Pittsburgh, they had a backyard brawl with West Virginia last Thursday, which was a really good game. 38-31, Pittsburgh was able to pull that one out. Tennessee, on the other hand, they're not the same Tennessee team that lost to Pittsburgh at home last year. Different Tennessee team. This is a once-in-a-lifetime offense for Tennessee standards. Pittsburgh's defense is decent. Tennessee is a 6.5-point favorite. I like that spread. I think Tennessee could win by 6 or 7 here, and that's just offensive talent. Their defense isn't carrying their weight. That's why I think it's going to be so close. But I have Tennessee winning. Tennessee could cause some major upsets. They have Alabama and Georgia on the schedule this year. I don't think they're going to win both of those games, but they could make it close in both matchups. Our next game is South Carolina traveling to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. The Razorbacks are an 8.5-point favorite. Arkansas is a good team. Are they going to compete for the SEC West? Maybe. Beat Alabama? I doubt it. South Carolina, on the other hand, they are not playing good football. They trailed in, I think, the second or third quarter last week hosting Georgia State. That's unacceptable. I mean, South Carolina, they are now the worst team in the SEC East, I believe. The Gamecocks, they are definitely below Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is much improved this year. South Carolina is not. So I have the Razorbacks winning by 3 touchdowns, 21 points. I think the Razorbacks are going to be on a roll this year. Next game, we have Kentucky traveling to the Swamp to take on Florida. Florida's a 4.5-point favorite. Why is that? Home field advantage? Maybe Kentucky's got players suspended. That's true as well. But after watching Florida knock off Utah last week in the Swamp, that leaves 2 questions. One is true, one is not. Either the Pac-12 is completely inferior or Florida's a really good team. I say one's true and one's not. They're probably both true. The Pac-12, the only good team in the Pac-12, it looks like this year, the only one that has a possibility of making the playoff is USC. Who'd they beat last week? The Rice Owls. So I really think Florida's going to be on a roll. I did not think the Billy Napier era was going to start so fast, so quick, so good, but it has. I've got Florida winning by a touchdown. I think Kentucky, maybe because it's a rivalry, is going to keep it close to the end, but I have the Gators winning. Our next game is a big game this week. College game day is going to be there. It is the Fox game of the week at 11 a.m., which is a weird time for your primetime game, but I'm not going to question it. We have the Alabama Crimson Tide traveling to Texas to take on the Longhorns. Okay. Steve Sarkisian was an offensive coordinator under Nick Saban a few years ago. Texas, they have a lot of transfers from Alabama, so I expected that they would have some of them working, like Jaleel Billingsley and Kian Robinson. All those players that Texas got from Alabama, they combined for 7 yards last week against ULM. And they dominated ULM. They went into their depth chart and still didn't bring out any of their transfers, which that must mean that Texas got the bottom of the barrel for Alabama. Alabama's maintained the cream of the crop. It was obvious to see that in their 55-0 win against Utah State last week. Texas, there's all this hype. Texas has been back for the past 5 seasons. That's what everyone said. They are nowhere near back. Texas, I think, is struggling. Can they rebound under Sarkisian? I think so. That might be next year or the year after. Definitely not this year. I have Alabama winning. Got a score for you in this one. I think Alabama's going to win 41-17 over the Longhorns. Alabama's a 20-point favorite. I do think they're going to cover. And that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoy your week of football. I know I certainly will mine. Thank you for watching. God bless and have a great day.